into. I was gonna let everybody get through the buffet line first. Of course, I'm here with a cocktail. Shocker. Spitting. I don't know if it's that camera up there.
We are in the live stream, yes.
Is that camera over there? That one in the corner. Got it. Yeah, I don't know if the microphone's on though. I can't. It doesn't sound like it's on, so I don't want to I don't know who the AV people are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like yesterday I walked up here and I was like, oh God, I need to move that so that they don't hear what I'm saying.
Test.
There you go. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. So if you want to kind of grab your last mimosa or cocktail or cup of coffee and breakfast, we'll get started shortly. Okay, great. Great. Good morning. My name, guys. We're going to go ahead and get the program started for Brewing Reflections. My name's Gloria Cantor. I am the class of 2004 and a management major, so excited about this. Good morning and welcome again to Alumni Weekend. If you were not here yesterday, it was a great day of programming, and we're so glad you can join us this morning for Brewing Reflections. Our panel features current and former faculty members sharing their insights and experiences. After this session, we invite you to stay for the annual presidential address, continuing our celebration of the Goucher community. Before we get started, I wanted to share today that today's program is being live streamed. So again, live streamed for members of our community who are joining us virtually. So let's take a moment to give them a warm Goucher welcome. You can wave right behind me to our friends online. We're thrilled to have Dr. David Grossman, Professor of International Business and Marketing, also the Jean Beekes 1949 Professor of International Studies, serving as our moderator for today's discussion. A member of the Goucher's faculty, since 2011, Dr. Grossman is known for his hands-on approach connecting classroom learning to real-world experiences, including leading a study abroad program in Cuba. His work focuses on global markets and entrepreneurship, and he is widely recognized for preparing his students to become confident, strategic thinkers. Please join me in welcoming Dr. David Grossman. You're welcome.
Good morning. Can you all hear me okay? Good. Thank you, Gloria, for that very kind introduction, and good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many people back on campus. We have a combined century of academic wisdom on this stage today, and I'm honored to facilitate this conversation. We want to dive into the Goucher experience, where it started for our faculty and where it's heading. To get us moving, I'd like to ask our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. Please tell us your role, your area of expertise, how long you've been part of this community. I'd also like to challenge you to keep it to a Goucher minute so we can get right into the reflections. So Jean, can we start with you?
Here we go again. All right. So this is what they wanted from me.
Here we go. Here we
I'm the
go.
one they don't want to hear. How's that? All right. So I made a terrible mistake early in my life. I did not begin my undergraduate education at Goucher. But I came as a graduate, as an undergrad, and I met here someone that I hope a few of you know his name, Bill Newman. He was fantastic. He told me my senior year, and I was a married student with children, also a heresy at Goucher at that time, that I should go to graduate school. So he pestered me. He badgered me. And while I like to think that I made that choice, I also think that he was a big part of it. So I went to Hopkins and got my doctorate, and then I came and taught at Goucher, where for 45 years I had classes in Van Meter, became my second home. I had a few years off when I was a visiting professor, and when I was away, I figured out how great our situation at Goucher was. There's a lot of complaining in the faculty. Is that still true, Dave?
I don't know what you're talking about.
But it was through going off and comparing Goucher to other institutions that I came to see how lucky I was to spend 45 years teaching.
Mary.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. So I began at St. Olaf, which is a small liberal arts college in southern Minnesota. And then I got my PhD in American Literature and American Studies at the UW-Madison campus in Wisconsin. And this was my first job out of graduate school. And I fell in love with it immediately. And this has been a really happy home for me for 31 years.
David, please.
Yes. Can you hear me? That's never a problem. Ask my students. I kind of yell. But I came a very different route. I earned a master's in journalism in specialized reporting on media and popular culture at the University of Wisconsin. And then I went into newspapers. And I worked a total of about, when I left the Baltimore Sun full-time was 32 years, so maybe 40 years with the papers before that in media. But in 1990, I did a piece for Esquire, and it was a big story about the American psyche and all that stuff. And I realized there were a lot of holes in my education. So I said, I have to find a newspaper. I can't afford to go back to graduate school cold. I have to find a newspaper that would pay me to continue as a media critic, and a school that would take me as a part-time night school PhD. Not easy. The Baltimore Sun hired me, and the University of Maryland College Park said, sure, we'll have you. You'll be so different than our other PhD students. They're going to beat you up in the seminars, because you're from corporate media, blah, blah, blah. You're a different generation. But it was a great experience. In 1990, I had a chance to start teaching as an adjunct at Goucher. And to make this story short, I would work during the day at the Sun in the media world, which was getting progressively nastier and more political and more partisan, and they were all downsizing. Somebody asked, one of the professors at College Park said, how's this downsizing going at the Baltimore Sun that I read about? And I said, every day the editors go in a room and close the door, and then at the end of the day they wash the blood off the floor and and repeat and rinse the next day, and another 50 people are out of work. But I came here, and in that world, it wasn't that I didn't like that world. That's what I was trained to do. I was socialized to be that kind of competitive. I'd come out here and teach at night about journalism, and just the surrounding was so different and so wonderful. And then the values of the students, the values that they started teaching me about being less competitive, about listening to more voices, all that education took. And so I taught here adjunct. I got my PhD in 2000, took a half-time job so I could keep writing media. And then, so I've been here 30 years. I'm full-time now. I left the Sun. And I also worked for CNN. When I left the Sun in 2021, I signed on with CNN in 2022 and appeared on their Sunday morning shows and wrote for them. But this is the joy of my life. People say, "Oh, gee, you retired from newspapers. Isn't teaching a lot?" No, it's not. It's so invigorating, so exciting, and so rewarding. And it's the Goucher values, which we'll talk about. I'll stop talking. But,
That's the Goucher Minute. Thank you, all three of you. It's clear we have a wealth of perspective here. Let's start at the beginning. To begin our reflection, let's look back what brought us all to Goucher. The college has a specific DNA. It's small, rigorous, and deeply personal. I would like to ask each of you, what was it about Goucher's particular philosophy that drew you here initially? And how has that Goucher spark changed or stayed the same since you arrived?
You start.
Okay.
I mentioned that I went to UW-Madison, and I taught a course there, my first course ever as a graduate student, and it was an Introduction to Literature course that had 300 people in it. And it was in this kind of arena-style seating, and I had been convinced I could have a discussion with this group. So I got a mic, and I spent almost the entire semester running around trying to, let people answer questions and have a discussion, and it was insane. And at the end of that, I just thought, I know for certain that I want to be at a really small college where those kind of intense, lively discussions can take place without the craziness of running around an auditorium. So Goucher was on my list of places that fit the bill in terms of the size of the school. And then I drove on campus for my interview in December, I guess. It was early morning and there was some fog on the road and 3 deer crossed my path. And I'm a huge Midwesterner and Northern Wisconsin person and deer person. And I thought, they planned this for me. Because I thought, part of me did not want to move to the East Coast, to be honest. I'm just Midwesterner in my very blood. So, and then, as David said, the surroundings, you come on campus, and I don't think, unless you've been on this campus, you don't fully realize that we're in a city with 285 acres of woods around us. It's just stunning, a stunning place to come to work. I've redesigned a lot of my classes to involve the woods more. So that's a big part of what I see as the DNA of Goucher. I also have discovered here unparalleled academic freedom to teach what I want and how I want. And I have colleagues at lots of different institutions. Yeah. And they are so envious of me. The experiments I can try, at first I thought I had to check it with my department chair, and they're like, no, just have fun, do what you think is right. And so I've endlessly reinvented myself with permission by Goucher and encouragement by Goucher. And the last thing I want to say, and this is in some ways the most important thing, is that Goucher, when I'm sitting in my office talking to students like Lydia, I see up there, and Kai, who comes by my office frequently, and we have tea together. When I was at UW-Wisconsin, I would meet students like that, but I was always aware that this is not what I was supposed to be doing. Like it was taking away from a part of the job I was supposed to be doing. And I love Goucher because when I'm sitting there talking to students, I know it's exactly what I should be doing. It's exactly where I should be. I don't think any of those things have changed in my 30 years. They've stayed the same.
Jean?
Let me pick up on some of the things that Mary said. The Goucher spark, to me, is all of you.
Yeah.
The students who, through the years, managed to get up for 8 o'clock classes. The student who, I remember this so vividly now, in one of my early women's history classes, she streaked. Do you know what that is? So I'm in the midst of a long and perhaps boring disposition on something, and the door opens, and this nude woman with a mask on her face runs through the classroom. But it's also the students who taught me how important Goucher was. I think of a student who lived in West Baltimore who took 3 buses and then had to walk from what was then Hutzler's to get to her classes. I think of a student who was in the process of transitioning gender-wise and was having a terrible time with her parents. I think of a student who came his last semester, and his parents hadn't paid the last tuition bill. And all of these students survived and transcended, and perhaps were better off for the challenges that they had. And I know that all of you here today had challenges while you were somehow negotiating a Goucher AB. And so here's to all of you, and especially to the class of 1976.
All right, David.
Wow, how do you top that? I'm used to Sunday morning cable TV where we just yell at each other, and one of us has to denounce somebody else on this panel. Not likely to happen here. It's so funny because so much of what Mary and Jean said, same thing applies to me. From the Midwest, graduated my BA from a small college, St. John's, up in the woods in Collegeville. So I think maybe that took more than I thought. But in terms of what drew me to Goucher and the spark here that I think is really important, especially in this day and age, is its history of student social activism. There's a plaque out there right in front of and I'm sure some of the people here may have had plaques put up, put plaques up, but there's a plaque right where the president parks outside of Dorsey. I think it's a perfect spot. And it's a reminder, a celebration of the women who fought for the right to vote in early 19th century America. And it celebrates them picketing the White House, marching to the White House, housing speakers, suffragette speakers, and then it also talks about the 60s civil rights struggle, how students, women from Goucher, went into Baltimore and marched in that and helped tutor students in impoverished areas. That spirit of social activism still lives with the students today, and it's one of the best things because to me, Goucher was really what it celebrated history. Folded into that is the history of educating women first, but all kinds of women. When I published a book with Brandeis University Press, and they were trying to get me to publish with them, and they sent me some stories and some books that they had published. Great press, by the way. And one of them was about, in the 1930s, a Jewish woman a young girl who came to work here as a maid in somebody's house, and then she pleased her employers, and they wanted her to get a college education, but they couldn't find schools that would educate a Jewish woman in the 30s because of the anti-Semitism. Guess which school took her and which she graduated from? Goucher. That, to me, was such an important thing that it did it. Goucher, largely what I really feel today is that it helps women find their voices. And there are so many forces that tries to silence young women. So that's what brought me here, and I still see it. The plaque was brought to my attention, as a matter of fact, by a first-year student in my free speech class. Talk about free speech, Mary. Never have I felt like I couldn't say anything in that class. And my model for, really, one of the models for coming to Goucher and teaching and leaving journalism was my professor at Wisconsin, who was blacklisted during the McCarthy era. And he was the White House correspondent for Newsweek magazine, which, as you know, was a big magazine. Couldn't find a job. Grinnell College gave him a job. He was great at Grinnell and made it to Wisconsin, where he had a long and distinguished career. But he told me, he said, David, when free speech, and it'll get shut down again at some kind of ways in America, as it is by the McCarthy, we're living it now. He said, the last place where you'll be able to speak freely is in a college classroom. Treasure that. And I tell my students that every year when we start. This is holy, sacred space for free speech. Goucher does allow that, and it's just wonderful. It also helps because I advise the student newspaper, and there's always free speech issues with the student newspaper. But that's really it. That student. Oh, the thing I was going to finish was a first-year student here during some rallies we were having on campus in connection with things in the Middle East. For her first article, she wrote about that plaque outside the window, and she said that's why she came to the school, and she was not going to be a journalist. She had no interest in it. She was actually a soccer player. She came here to play soccer. But she saw that plaque when she visited and showed it to her mother and said, okay, we settled. We're coming to Goucher. So that history still speaks today.
It's a great story.
That's another Goucher minute, David. Sorry.
Well, that idea of the Goucher spark leads perfectly into how we actually teach here. One of the most rewarding aspects of being a professor here is the lack of intellectual fences. We often find that our students prefer not to stay within the boundaries of a single discipline, bringing a diverse range of perspectives into every discussion. In your time here, how has this culture of open inquiry pushed you to look at your own field through a different lens? Jean, can we start with you?
I'm not sure how to speak to that. I do think that the climate in a small college breaks down the rails that we put up between various disciplines. And in Goucher, you don't have a history faculty of 17 or so and hang out only with historians. I'm not going to say how many history professors there are today at Goucher, but not enough, of course. But the point here is that you mingle with other disciplines, and I think Goucher has always been foremost in the idea of interdisciplinary studies. I think of times that I spent with Penny Cordish, who many of you know, and we taught a course on the United States from, I don't know what it was, 2000 to 1900 to maybe 2000. And along the way, I learned a great deal about literature and how important it was and how I could use it in my history classes. And so I think the idea of a small college is excellent in terms of getting away from some of the, as I've said, their guardrails. Historians in universities never talk to people in literature. But at Goucher they do, and I think that this enriches not only enrich my teaching, but also my writing. I mean, the idea that I had to only write books on the Civil War, well, forget that. My last book was on an architect, Benjamin Henley Latrobe, and I think I never would have written those books or had classes that were the same in terms of introducing other disciplines had I not been at this college.
Yeah, honestly, this was the biggest challenge for me in coming to Goucher. When you get your PhD in literature, it is a profound act of specialization. So you go into the field loving various periods and eras, but by the time you get down to your last 2 years, you're required to focus on 30 years. So I was an expert in 30 years of American literature, 1890 to 1920. And so that's how graduate school works, and then the idea is to prepare you to attend a Research One institution where they are looking for specialists like that. So when I got to Goucher and I realized that right away I would be teaching academic writing, all of the American literature courses. So I think I spent the first 3 years learning how to teach 12 different courses, only one of which was in that very, very narrow. But I quickly discovered that I loved that. I loved the studying. I became a student again to learn about these different areas. It was thrilling and stimulating. And then something happened about 5 years ago that I would mark as the second really big shift in my interests. And it has to do with a conversation I had with a student. Her name is Isabel Rosenthal, and she was just an outstanding literature student. And I couldn't convince her to become a lit major. And so finally I sat her down and I said, why? You're so good at this. And she said, Mary, with the climate crisis, to major in literature would be the equivalent of having a picnic on the train tracks. And the more students I talked to about this, the more I realized that they were challenging me to discover the ways in which my field could become a powerful force for environmental humanities on campus. And so this is not something I could not have anticipated, although my own personal and private interests have to do with a commitment to the environmental causes. But I have entirely changed my teaching over the last 6 years so that all of my courses are focused on questions of environmentalism. And that too has been really, really thrilling. And there really came from students saying, we want to study with you, Mary, but we need to feel like the classes we're taking are going to help us better understand and better equip us to deal with the environmental crisis.
Could I interject here before David, you speak to that?
She knows.
This is a history lesson. about teaching at Goucher. When I came to teach at Goucher in the 1970s, the focus was on the professor. One of the professors in the history department would call the students Miss Smith, Miss Jones, whatever, setting up these boundaries. The way that you taught was to lecture.
Yeah.
When I retired from teaching at Goucher, students, bold ones we have to say, called me Jean, and it was very much a student-oriented process. You were put in groups. How many of you remember getting in groups and trying to figure out what the answer to the question was? The syllabi got longer and much, much more helpful for students. In the old days, I don't even think we had syllabi. And the student evaluation became part of our futures. So the change over time, it seems to me, indicates the flexibility of this process of trying to learn and expand intellectually. And I think that at Goucher, it was very seamlessly done. And that is one thing I think about the college today. It is flexible. It is flexible while it tries to hew to the old standards that it has always created and dispelled among us.
Pardon?
Finished.
Oh. Signs, go ahead. You can give me a, oh, okay. You see, this happened on cable TV. Zurich, 1 minute, not 5. It's about boundaries and change. One of the boundaries that was broken here was when I started, when I was not teaching free speech. Sandy Unger was the president, and he taught it. And one day Unger called me up and said, Zurich, I want you to co-teach this with me. And I said, Sandy, I've got a lot of work. He said, Zurich, who's calling you? I'm the president. Okay, you're going to teach this with me, And I said, okay, Sandy, we'll teach it together. He said, well, we sort of have to fight a little bit. I see on cable TV, it'll entertain our first-year students with free speech. Sandy, of course, was a big deal in free speech. He wrote books on it. He's one of the champions of free speech. But that was a interdisciplinary kind of thing. My PhD is in American Studies, which is all interdisciplinary. That's who we are. And I'm very comfortable in that world of working from different disciplines. And that's why I still teach the first-year seminar in free speech, because it's first-year students, and I don't know what background or where they're going to go. Some of them will come into communications and media studies, but not many of them. I'll recruit them, try to get them on the school paper, but a lot of them are going into other fields. So there's a great sort of cross-current of different perspectives. And now, Goucher has done a really great job the last couple of years of bringing in international students. And the internationals, I had 5 of 16 students, 5 or 6 were international students, and they were fantastic. We talk about free speech, and after 2 or 3 sessions, this young woman who's brilliant comes up to me and says, hey, Zurich, I'm from Singapore. I don't even know what you're saying with free speech. I've never heard the concept. It's alien, And there was a woman from Egypt, said essentially, and we had it was the best seminar we ever had because of these different voices in there. But when I came here, and how Goucher changes you, when I came here, I was socialized to 30 years of corporate journalism at the big level where serious people are running it. And they socialized us to free speech, free speech, free speech. Nothing. Free speech is good. As long as it's free, no bounds put on. Don't let the government start regulating. Don't let anybody regulate us. We need free speech. And I believe that. And I believed it about, comedians pushing boundaries. That's how we sort of test out how far we're going to go as a society. But in my classes at Goucher, the students, some of them would testify to how certain kinds of speech hurt them, frightened them, made them feel they didn't belong, made them feel like an outsider. And their voices after not even one semester, but hearing those, and they were honest, the kind of honest voices you can only get from young people who are not tainted yet with self-censorship and all the rest of the things we do. And I thought, you know what? And I confessed to the class one day. I came in, I said, you know, I've been living free speech, free speech, free speech. Automatic, knee-jerk, free speech. You convinced me we need limits on certain speeches, and not just in middle school and not just in high school, but there's marginalized and historically oppressed groups that are victims of free speech used by dominant majorities. And there need to be limits on that. Now we need to figure out how to do that. And now we have people, thank you. You know, now we have people like Elon Musk taking over Twitter, now called X, and saying he's a free speech purist. Yeah, as long as you don't criticize him, or you can go as far to the right as you want to go. He'll print it, but if you criticize him or any of his friends, blah, 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 they'll cut you off. They're not free speech purists. We don't even know anymore what free speech means, but I know those young people whose futures are severely limited by hateful words need to be protected. So, and the students taught me that. No school, no book, nothing.
All right, thank you. You know, we've spent our careers teaching students how to think, write, and find their own voices. Now we're in an era where generative artificial intelligence, also known as AI, can mimic that process in seconds. I want to tell you that the questions for today actually came from AI. Looking at your own work and your classrooms, do you see this technology as a threat to the human heart of a liberal art education, or is it just the latest tool we need to help our students master? David, I want to start with you.
Okay. I'm used to like poaching off the wisdom of Mary and Jean, so I'll have to start. I actually have a short answer for this one, and it's true. I think the thing about Goucher, historically, all the different things we've been saying, at least I've been saying, is about helping young women find their voices. And in that kind, it's incredible empowerment. And it's fought society in some ways to do that because of, you know, all the things we all know so much about inequities in this society. But all professors like us and many, many more at Goucher are trying to help young people find their voices now that it's called all young people. But I still think of this, I still have to say, I still think of this as a women's primarily institution. I really do. Maybe it's because so many of the women in my classes are so smart. Wait a minute, let me tell you this thing. We talk about empowering students. The students call me, Jean was talking about the difference in going from professor and lecturing. My students call me Zerwick, okay? And maybe that's because I'm the world's oldest living assistant professor. They have this great respect for my eminence here. But they call me Zerwick. But I recruit students to my classes from outside, like the media studies department. I have a 300 level course in media criticism and critical analysis of journalism. And I brought in I tried to get some 2 or 3 women who are outstanding women in this college who are not majors, and I recruited them, just, called them up, said, hey, why don't you come in this course? And so they did, and they were great. And the other day, somebody gave a presentation, and I was trying to be supportive, and it was a good presentation. And I said, at the end, after everybody commented, I said, that presentation was so strong, and you evoked such a great response from the audience that I was trying to get into the conversation, and I didn't want to interrupt it. I had to put my hand over my mouth, button my lip. And one of the women I recruited and brought in sitting in the front said, great, Zerwick, now you know what it feels like to be a woman. And the class kind of went quiet. And I went, that's the best thing I heard all day. Thank you. It's exactly it. You can talk about how sympathetic and empathetic, blah, blah, blah. Now you felt it, Zerwick. You wouldn't feel you could get a word in edgewise as other people were talking. So Good enough. I'll end it there. I'll end it there.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this question when David sent them to us ahead of time, and I have nothing helpful to say about this. I read a lot about it. I read a lot of conflicting views. This will amount to nothing, or the world is going to change in such profound ways in the matter of a few more years. So I have nothing to add to that conversation that you wouldn't know firsthand by reading much smarter people than I and what they've written. I did ask my students this. So I teach this absolutely astounding class. It's a CPE called This is Human, That is Nature. And I just have this spectacular group in there, very thoughtful. Many of them are artists, or creative writers, dancers, visual artists. And I asked them about this, and I was a little surprised by their response. They had no time for AI. And it wasn't that they were turning their back on it, saying it was irrelevant, but they are fierce protectors of art in all of its forms as a fundamental form of human expression. And because they believe that, they are going to fiercely defend those modes of expression from encroachment by AI. And I found their attitude refreshing, and it just gave me enormous hope for the future. That these students they see what's coming their way, and they're already figuring out what domains are precious to them that need to be protected from this.
You had a lot to say, man. Good stuff.
I'm old enough so that I don't have to worry about AI. But I have a friend who writes historical fiction. I happen to think it's terrible fiction, terrible history, but he told me a story that I think is relevant here. He's writing a book on 17th century Maryland. He's written a dialogue. He's turned to AI and asked it, who is it, Claude? Is Claude AI?
Yes, this is one of them.
He asked Claude to take his dialogue and put it into 17th century English the way that colonists would have spoken in Maryland. I was really astonished that that could be done, but AI can do everything, right? But the problem that I see is, while he turned that task over to AI, next time I see this guy as asking AI to write the dialogue. Yeah. And then if you're with me with this metaphor, the next time he'll simply let AI write the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the dilemma that I don't think any of us here can answer. Will it be a tool, or will it be an agent of destruction of the liberal arts? Who knows?
If you don't mind, I'd like to actually intervene, because I spend a lot of time with AI, not just for today's questions, but on research, in pedagogy, and working with students. And it's true, a lot of them are, or some of them are unclear of what to do with AI, but I feel like it's my job to help them, because it's in the workplace. It's in the workplace, medical as well as newspaper, everywhere, law. And so I help students utilize it to almost like a graduate assistant. That's how I've been using it. It's been quite helpful. I teach them that it makes mistakes and how to utilize it and use their Goucher education, their Common Core that we are very proud of here at Goucher, of how to determine if this is really the right answer. And I use simple questions so that they can see, oh, this is the wrong answer. It's okay, well, let's try another one. Let's try another AI. There's so many to try. And they'll see that AIs have different answers, but it's I wouldn't say it's like talking to a human, but it does make mistakes, and they can begin to decipher right from wrong or have a discussion about it. And so I'm encouraging them to use it in the classroom in their research, because it is helpful, but it's going to make mistakes. And so, David, I know you wanted to say something.
I did, because I got so carried away with that woman telling me to shut up and learn what it was to be a woman that I didn't finish the thought, and it was my fault. You know, we talk about helping students find their voice, and me talking about helping young women find their voices, especially in a society that hasn't been easy for them to do. I fear AI will help them find the voice, but it is a corporate voice owned by a few tech billionaires out on the West Coast. Yeah. And it's already become highly commercialized and all the rest of it, and it's controlled by these people. And I really fear that our citizens of Goucher, our community members, are the most at risk of that. And I agree with Mary. Some of the students are, no. And I agree with you too. I mean, you can use it, but at this age when it's teaching values, indirectly, it's not preaching values, but it is teaching values. And I hate the way it's everywhere. You know, when I do a search, I've got AI coming up all over the place. And the AI about me is wrong. It doesn't say nearly how accomplished I am.
Well, I think like a lot of things, like a vehicle, it's our job to teach them how to use it responsibly.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
And that's where our education here at Goucher will help them.
I agree.
But, sure. Well, how do you recognize where the biases are with a professor? I mean, it just comes from experience, it comes from debate, and that's exactly what we do in the classroom. We have discussion about what students will jump in and give their perspectives. And as a professor, I'll come in and give my perspective. And sometimes it's a long discussion with anything, whether it's AI or a professor or an article that we're reading in class. So okay, sure. We're going to...
With AI, I recently attended something with my congressman, who is a very thoughtful ranking member on the Intelligence Committee.
Yes.
Okay, I recently attended an event with my congressman, who is very thoughtful, a Rhodes Scholar, and also the ranking member on the Intelligence Community. And at this breakfast, he was talking about AI and the dangers of AI in terms of young people, that it is becoming exponentially faster in terms of its ability to learn, and also its integration through major corporations, okay, into everything that we do. And one of the things, I mean, this is we are all beneficiaries of this Goucher spark that you guys were talking about, but I am worried about present day students and their understanding that AI is really not their friend. And I am a technology pro person, but this one scares the hell out of me.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to our last question, if that's okay. I know we're close on time. Are we okay? Wherever. I'm going to do it. So, I want to look toward the people sitting in front of us. Looking ahead, we have many alumni in the room and watching online, hopefully, who are navigating a world that feels increasingly complex and automated, as we just said. Looking back on your years at Goucher, what was the one human skill or perspective you hope every Goucher graduate carries with them into this tech-heavy future?
Oh, you want to start with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Want me to?
Sure.
This is going to sound strange because there's so many things to keep us up at night, but the thing that keeps me up at night, and have my son in mind here, who's a junior in college, I think there is a basic human freedom that is deeply imperiled, and that is our freedom of attention. And this is nothing I've studied, read about. I've now joined an attention activist community, which I encourage other people to explore. But the more you study, or the more I learned about the attention economy and the way it has turned our attention into a scarce, valuable commodity that technologies designed with an incredible intelligence behind it to grab and hold our attention is deeply frightening to me. And it is the only significant change I've seen in students in my classroom. And that is the difficulty to attend to what really matters to you, and too often spending time on things that you later regret. So when this first started to happen, in my own mind's eye, I framed it as a question of willpower, like students and the rest of us, right? This isn't just students. We need to resist this. We need to push back. We need days of digital detox. That is nonsense. This is an economy, an attention economy. And to frame this as individuals stepping back from an economy like that is simply not effective. So I want to urge all of you, as I have all of my friends and my current students, to begin to explore attention activism. In particular, there's a school in Brooklyn called the Strother School of Radical Attention. You can visit them and do online work with them. But I have become an apostle for freedom of attention. And I think it's, without that, I see freedom of attention as the precondition for almost all human endeavors. If our attention, our ability to pay attention to what we care about is no longer possible, I worry for us as a civilization. So.
That's good. Yes, I wish for the ability to deal with the challenges, and we've just talked about one, holding to what is more important than superficial realities of our life. And those, of course, are the values that we extend in our classrooms and in our lives. And so my hope is for flexibility, but discipline, remembering what is truly important in life, and forgoing those things that surround us all the time in terms of commercial stuff. So here's to flexibility.
Gene, I agree about flexibility, and with it, and Goucher has taught this, it was a motto for the college, I think, resilience. But also, and resilience. God, the young people today need that. But also with that, a sense of resistance and confidence that they can still change the world. Students, to me, one of the most troubling aspects is they feel overwhelmed by what's happening in our country right now in a lot of different ways, from the job market to the price of things, to some of them are members of groups that feel the administration is targeting them. I mean, and that they're powerless to resist that. I really hope that we can continue to give students the confidence to make their voices heard, and more importantly, the confidence to believe that they can create a better world than we did.
We were supposed to have 15 minutes of Q&A, and I have a feeling I can feel a presence of power over here. So I think we're going to have to wrap this up. But please join me in one more round of applause for our distinguished panelists, Jean Baker, Mary Marchand, and David Zerwin. Thank you for your reflections today.
Again, thank you again to our fantastic moderator, Dr. Grossman, and our panelists again. Before we transition to the presidential reception, we invite you to grab another cup of coffee, some light bites, maybe another mimosa if there's still things, and time to connect with your fellow Gophers. Don't forget to pick up your coffee mug as a reminder of today. And if you're interested in staying connected We encourage you to fill out our Goucher Proud table, which is just behind the stairwell, and you can fill out a volunteer interest form. We will be back here in about 5 minutes, so let's call that 10:30-ish, 10:32, and we will see you then. I don't know if there's more in the script. Oh, the presents script. Oh, okay. Yeah, no.
Pivot. Yeah. Okay, so at the closing.
No, I'm just gonna turn the microphone.
And yes.
And I'm assuming the nameplates just get thrown away. I assume these were gifts for the speakers.
Yes, and if you still see them, they can have.
Right, I gave David his. I was like, I don't know if you want it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So this will still stay, but then we just need another bullet of like some location changes for events.
Not upset, right? So,
You know, it's just, yeah, the safety.
Jimmy is over there, said Paisley. I said, look, here's the setup space we need. Here are all the extra supplies we need for catering, for vendors, and for seating. Once the presidential address gets started, I'll go check up on it. I want to make sure that the bar back here is set.
Yeah, the hard part now is going to be getting these people who just want to talk to like Gene Baker.
The mic doesn't work as well there, so it's going to be a lot of me yelling. What time did we say presidential address start at 9:30 or 10:30 on 30? I'll do it. I'm going to start at 1. It's just going to take
We have about 2 more minutes, so if you need to grab coffee, now's the time to do it.
Good morning. We hope you have enjoyed the panel thus far. We'd like to invite you back into the forum as we are soon to start the presidential address.
Okay. Yay.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. We are about to get started for the presidential address. Please take your seats.
Oh, you got yours in. It's good. It's good. Ready? Okay. Welcome back. If I could ask those of you who are still, I know this faculty are amazing and you want to talk to them, but we do need to get moving with the president's presentation. No. No. Okay. Gonna ring a bell. Where's the bell when I need it? No. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask you to take your seats again, thank you. We have people online who are waiting to. Huh? Hi. Okay. It's the president's turn. If you would, join me back here and we'll get going. The faculty are amazing and I appreciate that everybody wants to keep talking about their panel, but we are going to move forward. Thank you. My name is Gretchen Gilliland. I am the current alumni and alumni president for Goucher College. you. It's so exciting to see all of these familiar faces back on campus, people from my time here, but also alums I've gotten to know throughout the years, and then just this weekend. So it's great. Thank you for joining us. I know the weather is not as nice as yesterday, but that's great. It's just going to keep us in here so we can all keep chatting. It is my pleasure. I have a microphone right here. It is my pleasure to introduce Goucher's 12th president, Kent Devereaux. For 7 years, President Devereaux has led Goucher College during one of the most exciting and challenging times in the college's history. Kent is committed to the liberal arts, the continued diversification of the student body, the development of the curriculum, and the emphasis on global education. Under Kent's leadership, we have successfully moved through Goucher's strategic plan themed Cultivating Global Changemakers to enhance student success, expand global education, and emphasize inclusivity to a new era of inspiring global changemakers. Kent also championed Goucher's $100 million comprehensive campaign Undaunted, which surpassed the goal and reached $172 million. That's worth some applause. You're going to hear more about the impact and the growth as the result of these efforts a little later. Kent continues to innovate on our illustrious history and strong academic foundation, asking how Goucher can better serve our students and their needs to prepare them for the challenging world ahead. New majors and minors, each rooted in the liberal arts disciplines, and have equipped students for the global economy. New student support programs are offered to welcome first-generation college students to Goucher and foster an inclusive environment for them to flourish and in college and beyond. Kent has invigorated Goucher College and the promise of a bright future. Please join me in welcoming President Devereaux.
Thank you, Gretchen. Let's get this straight here. So, and welcome everyone. Before I get going, I was thinking about the topics I wanted to cover today, and I was just thinking about that previous panel, which was just so excellent, hearing from them. And I can think about all the things that I'm not going to tell you about today. So as Gretchen mentioned, in terms of some of the things that are going on, I'm not going to talk at all about athletics, even though in the last 3 years we've had several All-Americans. We've had our teams go to the NCAA. Our equestrian team, once again, is going to the Nationals this year. And student athletes today represent 33%, 34% of our student body across 21 different sports, men's and women's. Not going to talk about that. So I don't want any of the student athlete alums to be upset that I'm not going to put some focus there. Also, I'm not going to deal as much with our academic programs because I think you've heard what still remains today. But I am going to, a little bit, kind of touch on that because one of the issues that was raised here in terms of AI and how our programs are changing and what stays the same in a liberal arts college, what are the evergreens and what has to change with the times and what are always the kind of core values that we want to impart to every single one of our students. So we'll touch a little bit about that. But if I can have the next slide. I'm going to talk about a few things that I know are on everyone's mind. First and foremost, enrollment. Today we're a college of about 1,000 undergrads, 700 graduate students. At our peak, we're a little bit over 2,000 students. The pandemic hit. We're now at 1,700 students, but our incoming classes are growing every year. I want to talk about where we're going and some of the trends we're seeing. College finances, on everyone's mind. I think in the last 3 years, there have been over 150 colleges, small colleges, that have gone out of business. So probably one of the most frequent questions I get asked is, I'm worried about a liberal arts college like Goucher. Are you positioned well for the future? Should I be worried? And I'll talk about some of the strains that we're facing, how you can assist, and where we're going with that in the future. And as no doubt, as you came onto the campus, you saw a lot of construction. And for the next 2 years, there's going to be a lot more construction. And I'm going to talk about that very briefly. We've got 4 different projects going on. I'm going to try to keep them all straight so you get a sense of how the campus is going to change between now and January 2029. That is really kind of our milestone date that everyone to keep in mind. And then very briefly about our next strategic plan. And that's a little bit looking back and then where we're going for us. And I'll try to be as quick on this as possible. A lot of information to cover. So please, I'll try to kind of get through this. I want everybody to have a kind of good gloss of everything that's going on campus here, and then open it up to questions and answers. And immediately after that, we're going to be doing some tours of the new Lewent Science Center, as much as we can. It's not safe yet for us to walk in the building, but you get a sense of where we are. Here, April of 2027, we're exactly halfway through. We started April of last year. It will open April of next year. So it's a good time to kind of take stock on that. Onward. So enrollment. I think everyone knows, if you don't know by now, it has been for the last 15, 16, 10, 11 years, what's been referred to in the higher education community as the enrollment cliff. The enrollment cliff is nothing more that since the 1970s until today, the birth rate in America has been going down. Last year, lowest yet again. I think it was 2.2 per 1,000 women having children per 1,000. When I was in college, last year was down to like 1.51. So every year it's going down. Women are choosing to have children later. All of that has demographic impacts. And so it's not a cliff. We've been seeing this because obviously a baby born 18 years ago is going to be a first-year student this year. So we can see the demographics going on in America. But it's pretty clear that in the next 10 years, that decline is going to continue. So what is Goucher doing? I want to talk a little bit about that and kind of our strategy there. So if we look, next slide. This is just to give you a picture of what we call the enrollment funnel. So over on the far right is our fall 2024, then 25, then 26. And you can see some trends here. The funnel is said that because you start at the top with people who discover your college first by, quite frankly, going to the website. That is far and away the number one way that students find out about a college, discovering you on the website. And so you can see at the very top, the number of people who come, they show interest, maybe they submit an inquiry form. Well, 2 years ago, that was 5,000. This year, it's over 7,000 people. So it's going up every year. Good, all right? Then you go to that next step. But are they actually submitting an application? Okay, they go to that next step. Well, 2 years ago, that was 3,700 students. This year, it's 4,700 students. Great. Do they actually finish that application? Yep, because finished applications means, do they write the essays? Do they actually follow through with their transcripts? Do they have AI do the essay? Yes, we know it. And we have ways around that. We do video interviews with students and things like that. So, but all of that is, do they go to the next step? And you might say, well, okay, that's great. You got 3,600 as of right now. This will probably end up being about close to 4,000 applications by the end of the year, because we're still getting applications, and partially that is because from transfer students who tend to apply late in the year. So all of this is as of Sunday. I think last Sunday I pulled it. And then we have 3,500 admits. And you might look at that because the top schools, they say, oh, we only have 4% admits and 3% admits. And I'm going to Caltech. They only admitted 3% of their students last year. Great. We take a very different attitude. If they meet our academic standards and their GPAs and their essays and everything says that, yes, we don't look at need. So many schools exclude people and say, well, that's great, but we don't want a lot of poor kids. Quite honestly, that is the reality. 60% of the students accepted into Harvard are in the top 10% of the socioeconomic. It's very clear. We take a different approach. 40% of our students are low income, Pell Grant. 34% are first-gen students. We want them to meet that academic standard. Then, what is really different and happened in the last 10 years? And so, do we have anybody of our alums from 2016, 10 years ago? I saw some of you last night. There you are. This has all changed since 2016. That's how dramatic this is. So this last year, students on average nationwide were applying to 8.5 schools. We typically see them applying to 10, 12. If you've got friends, their kids are probably applying to 15 different schools. It has been basically, us in higher education, we've changed from being in higher education to being a market maker. That's what's happened. It is basically everybody applying to multiple things through one common app Then they look at the 15 different financial aid and scholarship offers, they say, and they say, this one's going to give me the best deal. And yeah, they're about the same as that one, or I might like, actually that was my number one choice, but this one's giving me more money, I'm going to go there. That is today's higher education marketplace. Everybody except for the top 25, I might argue 35 colleges, everybody else, the other 2,965 colleges in America, you're basically competing in that. It is crazy. It is crazy the way it is today. So out of that, we work with those students, and we try to say, and many students at that point, they say, I just can't afford to come. I'm bowing out. I'm bowing out. And that's a big part of it, because we can't meet the need of all the students who want to come here. And so those are difficult conversations, because we know they want to come here, but we can't support them. We don't have $1 billion endowment. We have a $300 million endowment. So we can help, but not that much. So that becomes part of it. And then they ultimately decide to deposit, show up in the fall. And you can see we had 310, 293 last year. It was disappointing last year. This year we're trending towards 350 deposits this fall. So we're seeing this trend upward. So if we go on to the next, give you an idea, where are we seeing interest? So no surprise, in America today, gee, guess what's the number one business? Everybody's hearing this from their parents. Oh my God, if you don't pick the right thing, you're going to be, you're not moving back into the basement. Sorry, you better pick the right discipline. Business, economics, chemistry, interesting. Okay, biological science. Gee, why could that be? Could it be that we announced this last year we're building the new Lowent Science Center and this gleaming new building with expanded resources, and we have the number two ranked post-bac pre-med program in America. Great opportunities, you know. We have been short on facilities, so this is really, we're seeing it already. And so you'll see percentage increase. This was interesting. So percentage increase, chemistry. Nationwide, chemistry grads are declining. In our case, they've shot up the most of anybody. Economics, okay. Philosophy. Now, granted, last year we didn't have that many philosophy applicants, but this is actually the number, it's you know, more than quadrupled, quintupled this year in philosophy. I say it's because students are kind of, they're going, what in the heck is going on in the world? I gotta, so a big part of it is that. Good. There we go. Public health, neuroscience, education studies, digital arts. You can see on the asterisk, those are new majors in the last 5 years. So that's good. It's saying that the majors that we're introducing today, we've got 40 majors across the college, are connecting with today's students. So we still teach philosophy, we still teach literature, we still teach the kind of core things you've always expected of a college. But we're also adding these new disciplines where we've got partnerships, like with public health, with Johns Hopkins, engineering with Columbia University. These are all good, so you can see how it's trending. So these are what we call leading indicators. It says this is good for the future at Goucher. So, and the next. And so this is an important component of enrollment. And I wanted everybody to understand this, because when I came here to Goucher 7 years ago, I looked at it and I said, okay, the demographic decline is going to happen over the next 15 years. We know that. The babies have been born. Great. Not going to change that. We're not going to go out and say, hey, can you somehow, you know, we can clone more babies, whatever, you know, it's just not going to happen. So stop worrying about that. You have to have a different strategy. And our strategy was, we looked at our peers and we said, gee, Vassar and Lafayette and Franklin and Marshall and, you know, Wellesley and Amherst, they all have 15 to 20% international students. We've been running a study abroad program, sending 100% of our students abroad since 2005. We had 13 international students total on our campus, less than 1%. So if we're going to lose 15% of our students due to demographic decline in America, they're just fewer domestic students. Well, why don't we add 20% international students to fill those same seats? And gee, guess what? International students pay more, they retain better, they graduate at a higher rate. What's not to like? So we started down that strategy 4 years ago, and we've gone now from 2% to 14% this year. 14% of our undergraduate student population are undergraduate students from 61 different countries. And as you heard from David Zerwick, they bring a whole new perspective. When we say things in our classes today, and we say, like the First Amendment, people go, What's the First Amendment? It forces, now, they're asking questions very innocently, but quite frankly, the student next to them, who's a domestic student, probably doesn't know everything about the First Amendment either. So it makes it great for everybody, and so it's really forced those kind of conversations. Our campus has become much more religiously diverse, with more Hindu and Muslim students on our campus, as well as Jews and Christians who we historically have served. So it's very good in that way to foster different conversations. And our goal is in the next 3 years to get that to 20% of our undergraduate student population from 100 different countries. We've been very, very specific about this. Many places they counted on, we'll get all of our students from China or Saudi Arabia. And then guess what's happened when there's a geopolitical risk? We were very specific. We did not do that. We got a lot of advice from other college presidents said, if you're going to go down this path, make sure you diversify as much as possible. So this is working out very nicely until now. This year, we're going to be, this last summer we did the same thing. We're having our international students who cannot go home because they can't get back into the country, stay on campus for free. They're basically being supported by the college. And they're doing absolutely outstanding work. We had 2 students graduating this semester. One's full ride in PhD program, Biological Sciences at University of Maryland. Another full ride in Data Sciences at University of Houston, full ride. Another one just got offered a job at Whiting-Turner. So it's very interesting. It's great. It's great. So onward. College finances. So enrollment is part of the equation. I would say the major part of the equation in finances. So that gives you a good picture of kind of what we're facing in enrollment and how they're challenging. But we're filling that with international students and more transfer students, and then growing our enrollment every year. But it's not going to change markedly overnight. It's a slow, gradual process of basically swimming upstream against some very, very, how should we say, unpredictive sources out of Washington, D.C. We just have to read the paper just like you and figure out, how are we going to adapt to that? And we do. So if we move on, I want to give you a sense of the college's finances overall. There's 2 ways of looking at finances. The balance sheet, what are your assets and liabilities, and then what's your operating revenue? So this is just looking at our balance sheet. So you can see 2019, when I started, our endowment was about $188 million. This last year, it was $300 million, so it's grown. That's great. Just as importantly, what I'm looking at, when I started, we had $135 million in debt, and I started, and I see a couple trustees here who were here when I said at their very first meeting, we were taking on no more debt. No more debt. We're going to get ourselves out over our skis. We're going to have a problem if we take on debt. We've got to amp up the fundraising. We've got to look at new markets. We've got to think about this very differently. So from 2019, $135 million, down to today, $123 million. That number is going to start to drop pretty significantly from this point going forward, just the way we've structured our debt. So it'll drop by about $5 million a year from this point forward. So we're getting ourselves into a better financial standpoint from our assets and liabilities. So that's good. Now, if we turn to the other part of the equation, next slide, the operating part. This is the challenge. This is the challenge because that top red line shows you what's called gross tuition per FTE, full-time equivalent. That's equivalent to what is our list price. So you see this all the time in the papers. Oh my word, so-and-so's raised their tuition to, $80,000. That's outrageous. How could they do that? Nobody pays that unless you're in one of those top 25 colleges. Nobody pays that. Everybody else, as I said before, it's a negotiation. It's a negotiation. We make our offers. We figure out what makes sense for us, for that student, how that student can fill a niche that's needed to fill here, how we do that across. And then what's happened is students, colleges over time, and you can really see where it starts to take off at about 2014, 2015. Gee, right where the demographic decline starts. Gee, big surprise. Schools are offering more institutional aid. Even across the street, down the road, at Towson University, a state school is actually discounting their tuition to get students in the door. Think about that. So Frostburg, also in Western Maryland, just announced this last week, they're going to do in-state tuition for school students from other states. That's how desperate it is. There's over capacity in the higher education space. So you are either winners or losers, and we are firmly committed to being winners in this space. So that means we need to move aggressively. You can see what that means. That orange line is inflation adjusted. What's the dollar that actually came in the door? It's flat or declined during the pandemic, and now it's kind of flat. So we're trying to hold that and then see how we can grow that up. So that means that every student who comes in the door, above and beyond, is just costing us more and more money. So part of this is scale. You know, if each year we grow, and instead of 1,000 undergraduates today, we're 1,500 undergraduates 5 years from now, ultimately 10, 15 years from now, we're 2,000 undergraduates. That helps. You can scale more of those costs. You don't need to hire another librarian every time you add another 300 students. So, I mean, you can figure out ways to kind of get better scale about it. But a big part of it is just us being more efficient under all. How we run the school, but then also as we build our brand and awareness nationwide. That's a big part of it. So that's what we're doing. Next. So we're also looking for money from other sources. When I came in 7 years ago, we had brought in one $300,000 grant from federal, state, county, foundations. We went through, we called everybody, I went back and, we talked to the Rockefeller Foundation, the Mellon Foundation, the Kresge Foundation. They're like, oh yeah, we gave you a grant back in 1996. So we have built under our Vice President Advancement, Michelle Ewing, fantastically under Andrea Marsh, our Director of Corporate and Foundation Grants. We have built this now so it's a steady pipeline where we're bringing in $2 to $4 million a year. That's money that we're bringing in now that we were not bringing in 5 years ago. And that is helping to fund many of these efforts. So we've got to do that. This is not public information yet, but we were just notified a week and a half ago by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. We're one of 30 colleges that have been awarded a $1.3 million grant to support the humanities. But you can see the kind of activity that's going on in this area. We've been very successful. We brought in 4 congressional earmarks. None of our, other than Johns Hopkins, none of our Maryland colleges have brought in anything. And so now they're all calling Andrea saying, how are you doing this? And so it helps. We've got, a former Goucher alum who's our congressman right now. That helps a little bit. But it's the Senate side of the building. Chris Van Hollen and Ben Cardin have been fantastic. So they've been fantastic working with us to be able to build that pipeline. So this is part of it. It's looking at these and then kind of going onward. It's really looking at how we can have the new programs and make the investments in partnerships that are going to do this. Because we can't do it just through grants. We can't do it just through enrollment. We got to be creative in other ways. So just a quick summary of the 4 different capital projects. There's some pictures here, and we've also put a few pictures around the room of the different capital projects going on, and I'm going to give you a sneak preview of something that nobody else has really kind of seen yet, so it'll be good to see. The Lewent Science Center, like I said, we're halfway through this project. It is on track, on budget. Next year, at this same time, during Alumni Weekend, we're going to open that building. It's going to be substantially complete, and we're going to do the ribbon cutting next year. So it is fantastic. Now, this was a big gamble, and I got a couple board members, so I've got to pick my language carefully here, because they looked at me, and they really challenged me and my team, and they said, Kent, we are making a $50 million bet, and we have not raised all the money for this. We have done several things, but when we made the decision to start this project, we had raised about that point about 32 million. We've now raised 41 million, and we're talking to a number of people. If you are a science grad and would love to contribute to this building, wonderful. If you're not a science grad, this is the Judy C. Lewent Science Center. Judy Lewent was an economics major in finance. But she said, my entire career, I worked with scientific companies, pharmaceuticals, and bio. And she said, I feel like I owe it back. Because you're not looking to build a new finance building, that's great. But you are looking, and this is the most important thing that we're doing. I'm a musician by training. I'm raising the money for a science building. I just think that is great. It is wonderful. So we're at that point. We're 41, maybe 42. We're getting new donations coming in all the time. There's naming opportunities. You'll get a tour today if you're interested in this. This is something that we've got to get done. But by next year, we've got to raise that final amount of money so that building is paid for. It will be the first new building in years, over 20 years, that is built with no debt financing whatsoever. So. Onward. So you've probably seen around all where there's pictures of the Went Science Center. You'll now can actually see the frame because that's all they're kind of putting in the frame. And then the next several weeks, they're going to start the masonry work at the bottom with the Butler Stone, which we have, to you alums, will appreciate this. We have retrieved the Butler Stone off of Stimson, and we're now repositioning that over there. So that's proceeding, and we just have a great facilities committee headed up by Adam Gross, who joined our board last year, one of the principals at Ayers St. Gross, the largest Baltimore-based architectural firm. A lot of just great work on this project, and a big shout out to my CFO, Brian Huxley, who is somewhere right there, who is managing this project and keeping it on track. So onward, that's one of the 4 projects. Number 2, we've got some things here so people can look at this afterwards, is the Whiting-Turner's headquarters. So let's go to this next one. And you might say, Whiting-Turner's okay, a little background about Whiting-Turner. So, and about where we're building on this. So Whiting-Turner is a 109-year-old Baltimore-based privately held company. It's the 4th largest construction company in America, okay? Only works in the United States, not global. So unlike some other big firms that are global, they are focused purely in the United States. But they have projects nationwide and a variety of things. Everything you could imagine. Campuses, but data centers, which causes some controversy. It's like, why are people building data centers? There's a lot of construction in that area going on right now. But you name it, governmental buildings, all kinds of things across the United States. So they're doing that. They came to us. They've had 2 headquarters in their history. This will be their 3rd headquarter. They've been in their previous headquarters, do the math, about 50 plus years. And so we've done a 50-year ground lease for 6 acres at the front of the campus. They are building their new headquarters on our campus, but more importantly, they're building their new national training center as part of that. So they're bringing in their people, but we'll be building internship and employment pipelines with them. Because Tim Regan, the CEO there, is smart enough to realize that he needs digital natives. He needs people in that next generation. How is the construction industry going to work with AI? Where are we going when everything today is modeled on 3D modeling? They're using lasers and drones and everything out in the field. It's a very, very different industry than when Tim started 45 years ago. So so working with college people on the campus, giving them jobs while they're here, and then employment. And I've already had one of our students actually hired as an assistant engineer by Whiting-Turner. So you might say, oh, why are we doing this? Well, some of you, in fact, all of you, because it's happened because I don't think we have anybody who's a graduate of 1956 or prior. Do we here today? Sometimes we do. In 1957, Peabody Prep, which was in Peabody Institute, built their preparatory facility out there. And then in 1977, it was acquired by Johns Hopkins University. And I'm sorry to say that Peabody Prep is still paying the exact rent that they were paying in 1957. Yep. And Johns Hopkins University is like, we've talked to them multiple times. They were like, nope, not going to put any money into fixing it up. Nope, not a priority. So we finally had to kind of have the conversation, said, we need you to move off that. So we had to work out a deal to get them off, because we don't want a dirty, rundown building sitting on the front of our campus. The students who've gone through that facility have been amazing, but how would you know? It all happens inside music practice rooms and teaching rooms. Meanwhile, outside, it just looks like a dirty, rundown place with a bad parking lot with potholes in it. Not exactly the image that we want to portray to the rest of the world. So we started talking with Whiting-Turner. They are now doing a ground lease on those 6 acres, and then they are going to be building their headquarters next. major changes at Goucher. So in the lower right-hand corner is Whiting Turner's corporate headquarters. Next to it, along Delaney Valley Road at the front there, is their training facility. You can see behind it the parking garage, 5 floors, 2 floors underground, okay? 1.5 floor underground, 3.5 above, with solar panels on the roof. Then behind that, 3 new towers by Edenwald. We'll talk about that in a sec. Those are 8, 8, and 10 stories. They're actually much shorter than the 18 and 14-story buildings that exist today, but this perspective kind of makes it look like they're taller. So there's that. And then you'll notice, see the front pond with the fountain there? You'll notice how we're going to be, this summer, adjusting the road. We're going to kind of softening that curve, and the new entrance to the campus is going to be going left instead of where you go right and turn around to the gatehouse today. So we're going to do that, and you'll come around that curve, and you'll look straight ahead, and what will you see? The brand new Lowent Science Building right across there, beautiful. And then you see next to the Lowent Science Building the copper, turquoise patinaed copper roofs of Crosshauer and Merrick Lecture Hall right there. So these, Whiting Turner, Edenwald, Lowent Science Center, and Crosshauer are the 4 different things that we're working on over the next 2.5 years. And we'll be making all of these kind of connective tissue, the sidewalks, the landscaping, everything that's involved with this. So I want to spend just a little time on that. Very brief, you can ask me questions all day about this because I could go on for hours and hours and hours. This has really been the focus for the last 2 years, getting these projects off the ground, underway, because it gives us the financial security we need going forward. That's a big part of it. So on to the next. This gives you an idea. If you were kind of coming out of the Sheraton Hotel on Southerly Road there, looking, this would be what Whiting Turner's headquarters will look like. You'll see it's designed by Gensler. All wood and stone and glass, really trying to kind of capture the feel of the campus. And if you flip around the other side, this is if you were about by the gatehouse, a little south of the gatehouse, kind of by Edenwald. You'd look over at the Whiting Turner building. You see in the background there the training facility. And then if we go to the next one, this would be, you would be coming in right at the Guth Gate, right off of Delaney Valley Road, right there where the 2 stone pediments are. You would look to your right, where there's Whiting Turner's construction fencing today. You'd look to your right, and you would see their new training facility right here to the right, and then the corporate headquarters there. And you will notice that they are leaving 3 acres of the 6-acre site completely undeveloped, or I should say, forested. I won't say carefully manicured, let's just say that. It's not undeveloped. Tim Regan is obsessive about trees, as I am. My father was a national park ranger, so I'm obsessive about trees. Tim started in construction. He's obsessive about trees too. So we're really looking at how we can actually leverage this. You can see they've cut down a lot of trees, but most of those were dead or dying or needed to be removed. Almost all of them locust trees. We're replacing them. So they've cut down 177 trees. We're replacing them with 190 trees. Some of those trees will be on our campus, some on their property. It's going to be maple and sycamores and ash and beech and hickory. It's not going to be 100% locust. We're really looking to increase the biodiversity of our campus. And we're working with the Department of Natural Resources on this project. So that's going to be absolutely fantastic. So on to the next, Edenwald. This is a project that, we go to the next slide, that we started, the conversations on this almost the very first day. The second week I was here, then we had this little thing, the pandemic, that kind of slowed things down for a couple of years. Then we initiated the conversations once again. We wanted to basically create the first university retirement community in Maryland. There are now about 150 nationwide. But we think we're doing something really innovative and unique. And I got to tell you, the Wall Street Journal does too, because next Saturday, there's going to be a feature story about Goucher College and how they are doing something really unique with Edenwald. So what is so unique about this? Most of the retirement communities, they're located near a college, but not on a college's campus. Number 2, they may have some lectures, things that happen at the retirement community, but what we're doing is taking it to the next level. We're offering co-generational classes. We're offering stipends to faculty members to develop new classes. the history of the civil rights movement with both Edenwald residents and undergraduate students in the same class. Think about that. Think about just in terms of issues of gender as a women's college and how that has been a contested here we are today. Read just this week, it's depressing. Incoming salaries for graduates out of college today, women are still going to be making 83% of what men make. It's 2026. It's embarrassing. It's outrageous. These kind of issues, and it's important for our students to understand that this change does not happen overnight. It takes time, and so having that historical reference in any of these things, migration, climate change, you name it, they become richer topics when we're looking at them from a multi-generational lens. And our students are going to be graduating into a workforce. There's increasingly, they're going to have old people in it, like me, who are still working, and they're going to have to get along with people from different ages. And, you don't text so-and-so who's 60 years old and say, hey, bro, want to meet down at there. You got to figure out communications in different ways. And so that's going to be a big part of this. Mentorship, lots of opportunities. And we're using this opportunity to, we do 12 to 14 intensive courses abroad, 3-week study abroad trips for our students, because 100% of our students have to complete that study abroad requirement. Most of them, 60%, will do a semester or a year abroad. But that means 40%, that's a lot of students, have to then basically do a 3-week study tour in January, June, or July. So what we're doing and experimenting with Edenwald first is we're doing multi-generational study abroad. So we're doing 2 of those every year, multi-generational. If this works out like we think it's going to work out this year, we're going to expand it to alums going next. So we're really looking at that opportunity going forward. So, yeah. So a lot of work to do on this, but we're proceeding. Go to the next slide. This gives you a little closer view. Sorry I don't have a perspective from the college here, but this is I don't know, if you were in a drone flying above the gatehouse or something, it's about where it is today. It's looking at these 3 new towers, and they will face onto the campus. The parking is all on that lower right. You can see an entrance to the parking garage underground. There is no surface parking at all. Everything is underground. There is no parking on our campus. You walk out the front doors on this tower here, and you are on 50 feet later, you are on our campus. All pedestrian. Really trying to integrate it that way. We were adamant about this. We did not want to be dealing with parking lots and more traffic, and we didn't want anything to really change the character of our campus. So adamant about that. Onward. So this is a sneak peek at a project that we're just right now proceeding with the initial planning. And if we receive the state funding, as we expect we will, we'll proceed. And I think you'll understand why. So we go to the next slide. Kraushauer Auditorium. Next. What we've done is we've engaged Ziegler Sneed, who's the same architectural firm who did the redesign renovation of Julia Rogers. So if you've gone in the Julia Rogers building and you kind of remember it before when the library was there and you were here, and you go in now and you go, wow, this is really nice. I like it. They're very tasteful in terms of the way they honor the historic quality of the building, at the same time bring totally up to date. Okay, so we've asked them to do the same thing with Kraushauer Auditorium. Kraushauer Auditorium was designed by Pietro Belluschi. Does anybody know who Pietro Belluschi is? Well, an architecture nerd like me, even before I came to Goucher, I go, oh my God, you mean the guy who designed, with Walter Bowes, what I knew as the Pan Am building, today the MetLife building above Grand Central Station, Pietro Belluschi, the Dean of Architecture at MIT at the time, who then designed the building here. He also designed St. Mary's Cathedral in San Francisco, which is an absolutely gorgeous building, and Nancy Pelosi's church in San Francisco. So there's a Baltimore-San Francisco connection there. I like that one. So problem is that building was built in 1962, before the American for Disabilities Act, the ADA. So a lot of issues with that. So what we're going to try to do in 2 phases is upgrade both the patron services, the front of house, the lobby, the bathrooms. We're actually putting an elevator in. There's actually an elevator shaft in there, but it was never completed in 1962. It has no backstage facilities. It is an entirely, not quite what we call in theater a hemp house with hemp ropes, but almost. It is all analog audio, all tungsten lights. We're going to try to bring it into the digital age, both the lights, the sound, the seating, all 19 and 20-inch seats is going to be expanded to 21-inch seats because Americans have gotten bigger, since 1962. No two ways about it. But looking at all, and that'll just reduce the seating from 985 to 945, not that much. So it doesn't really change the character of the hall. All ADA compliant, bringing it up, and so we've been working with them on doing that. So that is about a $12 million project, but we're phasing it in a way that we can actually do the first $6 million with donors and state funding, and we'll continue to fundraise so people can actually see the impact of this. We don't have to wait to get all of the funding in place. We can actually phase it over time. So we'll be doing that. This is the hall as it exists right now. It will look almost identical going forward, but every single light you see, which is tungsten today, will be LEDs. The backstage, everything will be. So if you go to the next one of the big things is the ADA access will then be on the left side of the building instead of the right side where the stairs are. None of that awkward stuff. We're adding additional wheelchair seating in there. The elevator will be where it says D, that's where the elevator. So we can go to Merrick, Croshauer, first floor, second floor, all within there. So that takes care of that. That's a drop-off point. That makes that very easy. And then if we go to the next slide, this is one of the big drivers for us. Backstage, we have no backstage. No, there's no dressing rooms because we never designed that way. No dressing rooms, no backstage field. No. There's one toilet backstage. That's it. All kinds of issues with that. You can see some new ADA seating there, highlighted in yellow, and sound locks between each of the spaces. Those are the yellow kind of place. So when you walk in between, so we can do something in Merrick and we can do a music performance in Merrick while we're doing a dance rehearsal in Croshauer. We can't do that today because Merrick literally has no back wall. It's kind of, you close the curtain and it's just right through. So all of that will be done. And a big part of this is we're seeing our opportunity to really make this a cultural hub. We do over 100 performances a year, arts on stage, Baltimore Chamber Orchestra, the ballet. We have a group that every year does sold out concerts, kind of bluegrass and old time music. 100 different performers. We're now doing comedians. We've had, I think we have Paula Poundstone and who we had this last year. We got people coming next year. That 1,000-seat hall in this community with accessible parking right off the highway, very, very attractive. We just don't have the backstage capabilities. And so what we want to do is we want to reduce that turn time from 36 hours to 12 hours. If I need risers, we don't have room to store them backstage or underground where we will in the future. We've got to haul them across campus. We've got to set them up. We've got to do this. We want to get it down so we could do a show on Friday night, turn it, and by the next afternoon, we're ready for kind of sound check for the next show. We will double the number of performances we do in there. We'll probably generate $1 million, $1.5 million more in revenue every year just by doing that. So we've got a lot of people who are very interested in doing that. So onward. The final thing, the connective glue on the capital project connects what we call the perimeter landscape plan. On to the next thing. This is great. Okay, wonderful. Move. Next. There we go. We've divided it out in 5 phases, and I'm very happy to tell you that the county sees the value of this as well, because essentially we have a 300-acre park here. We have taken the philosophy, we are an open campus. There's no big gates. You don't need to check ID when you come on the campus. There are certain security risks that come with that. So you might not notice things that more and more every year. There's more video camera surveillance on campus. There's better lighting we're putting on campus. There's a lot of things we're doing to being aware of that. And the Whiting-Turner project will help us even more to kind of advance that. But phase 1 and phase 2A is basically entirely funded by contributions from the county. They've seen the value of that. And we're currently in negotiations over the next several years to co-fund with us the other 5 phases, and that will include demolishing Stimson, returning that to kind of short term to basically open space, and who knows, maybe there's a pickleball court or 2 there, We'll see. Far enough away from the other residence hall so it doesn't disturb people. So we're dealing with that, but it's going to allow us to upgrade all of our sidewalks, all of our lighting, all of our running trails, all of that. So it's one continuous loop And our dog walkers will be so happy. Dog walker. We have become dog walking central. We meet people walking dogs, and they say, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "That's Ellicott City. You drove." People drive here and park because it's great, but we're saying to the county, we can't shoulder all that. That's not our students who are doing that. Help us out. They've been very, very gracious to work with, and so it's a good partnership. Everybody sees the benefit in this. If we go to the next one, here we got these 4 big projects: Whiting-Turner, Edenwald, Lowent Science Center, and the Crosshauer Auditorium. How do we connect all these ways in a park-like way? So you can see we've altered the road entrance where A is. That's the new gatehouse up there. It used to be at D. It's going to go up to A. Okay, great. But then what we're doing is taking this same kind of almost yellow brick road quality that the Van Meter Mile and these other kind of paths, we're going to be extending that through all of that kind of reforested area where we're, replanting the trees that, both Whiting-Turner and us and the DNR are kind of making happen. And then we've been working with Sasaki. Hideo Sasaki was the original campus planner back in 1957, and he founded what's today is the premier campus planning firm in America. His first campus was Goucher. And so we asked them to come back, and they are working with us on doing all this. So it's really been a great partnership. But what will happen over the next 2.5 years is we will develop all this, all the connective tissue, the sidewalks, the running trails. And you can notice that the sidewalks now are going away from the roadway. There's no reason you have to be walking next to a road on a campus like this. Let's actually make it more wooded, more appreciative. And you will also notice on this, I'll point this out now because I'll show on the next couple slides, the elevation above sea level. So we are, we're about 416 feet above sea level. And you can notice that at the top of the academic quad, at the current entrance to Hofburger, it's 440. So you got to get up 24 feet, okay? And how do you do that and make it ADA accessible at the same time? Aha. So next. So what we're doing is this gives you an idea from Edenwald and Crosshauer in the background. The same kind of brick patterned walking paths. We're going to be doing that across the campus. Next. Gives you an idea of upgrading our signage. It has been pointed out to me that you can't read many of our signage because the fonts are too small. And young people don't seem to notice that. But anyway, so we're going to be upgrading all of our signage, and things have changed. And so, what was there is now there, and all of that kind of stuff. We've got to do that, so that will happen. On to the next. And so you can see where Crosshauer is on the right and the Lowent Science Center is. Now you can see that new drop-off point in front of the Lowent Science Center and Crosshauer. And you can see then the pathways leading up there. And it kind of winds its way up the hill. And if we go to the next slide, you can see that is what it's going to look like at that drop-off center. Everything is below a 5% grade. It's 4% grade. It meets ADA, but because it's 4%, we have handrails on the side. If it was 3%, wouldn't need it. I did not know that. Now I know more than ADA than I ever wanted to know in my life. So, and you can see to the far right, you can see the entrance door for where the elevator will be. So going in that door will take you to the first floor, the lobby, downstairs, bathrooms, backstage. We can segregate each thing in terms of our backstage performers and our front of house. We can't do that today. It's kind of it's a mess, quite frankly. So this gives you an idea of that. And then onward. Gives you a sense of what's going to happen. Remember before I mentioned January 2029. That's when everything is done. Whiting-Turner starts construction this summer. Peabody will go down in August. It'll be down by September 1. That building, asbestos abatement, demolished, taken out. Whiting-Turner will start their construction. Shortly after that, in September, October, Edenwald will start their construction. Guess who the contractor is? Whiting-Turner. Why get somebody else in the mix? Makes it very seamless. They'll start. Whiting-Turner's building will finish first in the fall of 2028. Edenwald will open, grand opening of January of 2029. And then you can see Crosshauer. We're planning out both phases, and we're going to have to figure out this exactly because, we're very confident. We've got phase 1 pretty much funded. That's great. But we got to do it in such a way of if we can get both phases done, let's get both things done in the summertime when we don't have it booked. I shared this timetable with the CEO and music director of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra to plant the idea that said, gee, in summer 2029, we're going to have an entirely redone hall out here, a beautiful campus. It'd be nice to have the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra out here do a summer residency every year from that. And we'll see. They were very excited at the idea. I said, great. And I know how symphonies and operas work. They got to plan 2, 3, 4 years in the future. So I said, start thinking about that now. Because if we can keep this on track, we would love to be even more of a community resource. Bringing people onto our campus. Why? Our biggest challenge is not enough people know about Goucher, who we are, what we do. And once they find out, it's like our enrollment. The students who come onto our campus and actually take a tour, 56% of those then enroll. Yeah. So that's the challenge. That's the challenge. They see it via the web. You don't get a sense of the campus. You don't get a sense. You come here and you realize, oh, I'm right next to a big city, but on a beautiful, gorgeous campus. We're going to make the campus even more gorgeous, even more connected to the community. That's our strategy. And then finally, let me go to the next and final thing. I'll be very, very brief. Our strategic plan. As was mentioned earlier, go to the next. We are just wrapping up. Next slide. A 5-year plan, 2021 to 2026. This was developed at the tail end of the pandemic. And how things have changed since the pandemic. Just every aspect of our lives. It's quite amazing. And so in this first 5-year plan, go to the next slide, we really had 3 overarching priorities. Grow our enrollment, and we've made some gains in certain areas. International, yes. Transfer, just starting to take off. Domestic, still a challenge. So we're really encouraged by these domestic numbers this year. Student success, how many actually graduate, and how do we do that? And then financial sustainability. We've been running deficits for years. Our challenge has been how to kind of reduce that deficit even more. Next year's projected half of this year's, the year after that, half of that year, the year after that, positive, finally. So it's like, how do you get the operating? You saw those big long trend lines, that red line and that orange line. How do you actually get them moving in the right direction? And so each year, chipping away at that, getting those things in place, we've become much more efficient as a college. We've reduced our operating expenses by $5 million a year. But, we can't cut our way to profitability. We've got to grow. And so that's a big part of it. So finally, looking at that, we've done a lot in the last 5 years. Most of these things I've mentioned, but you just look at, we have done a lot. 10 new undergraduate programs, 3 new graduate programs. You saw how those new undergraduate programs are taking off. They're really connecting. So all of this, retention has shot up. All of these things are moving in the right direction. So that's great. But if we go to the next, what we decided is 5 years does not make sense right now. Let's focus on the next 3 years. And what are the things that we absolutely need to do to increase our retention and graduation rate? What are the things we need to strengthen our financial position? What are the things that do to actually make our employees happier employees? These are tough times. And so a big challenge we face is just retaining our fantastic, you heard, faculty, amazing. We have recruited, since I've been here, 34 new faculty members. How do those 34 new faculty members, how they continue to be engaged, positive, helping our students move forward? So a part of this is looking at all these aspects together. And so at this point, working with the board and a strategic planning committee, next, we've defined 3 big priorities over the next 3 years. And they really are about creating a welcoming campus in every single way and increasing that. And we've done a number of these things, but we're going to go deep. So we've launched the Launch Scholars program, specifically to support our first generation undergraduate students. The problem is it's only serving a third of our students. We simply do not have the money to support it at the level it needs. So if that's a cause that's attractive to you and you feel like you might want to step up and help with your fellow alums, then by all means talk to Michelle Ewing. That's where we'd love to support that. We're launching an honors program. We've already had one alum who stepped forward and is in conversations with her to talk about sponsoring that honors program so we can launch that. Because we're seeing those highest performing students, what can we do that's really special for them? We're deepening our commitment to the Arsht Diplomats program, which was funded with a gift from Adrian Arsht. in honor of her mother, Roxana Cannonor, a Goucher alum. That's really a leadership development program. And so we're working with those students and really giving them opportunities. And you've probably met a lot of them because they're student ambassadors and volunteers around this weekend. And then really looking at a new program that's focused on students who need some kind of support. Maybe they're ADHD, maybe they're somewhere on a spectrum. They just need better kind of executive management skills functioning to get through. They're amazingly bright, but they're struggling with those kind of things. So how can we add a layer of support in that way? So you can see we want to do everything we can to get our students across the finish line. So that's a big part of it. Then the campus and infrastructure. We're making a $10 million investment in upgrading our IT, our information technology infrastructure, moving from the old way we did it with a bunch of independent servers to a cloud-based approach, getting everything so it's much more cyber secure. We've got a kind of a checklist we're working through to get us more secure so we don't get attacked for ransomware, like many of our colleagues have been. That's a huge challenge for us. Getting us to be more secure, that our data is more, privacy is a greater concern for our students. And then, to follow on the conversation that happened previously, what are we doing about AI? Where are we going with that? Because I'm here to tell you that we can't stick our heads in the sand about that. This is kind of personal for me, and I'll kind of the history here. Most people, everybody who's seen me talk once, they kind of know the story. So I forgive it if you've heard the story before. But when I was first year student, University of California, my roommate, I was a music major. My roommate was electrical engineering. He said, come along with me, Kent. Let's go to the homebrew computer club meeting. And that's where I met Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. I was 17. I saw that and I said, oh my God, this is going to change the world. Okay? Fast forward. 1993, I'm living in Chicago, teaching at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And I was still involved with a variety of things because I had been computers and everything over the years, music and computers. And years before, ironically, at Stanford doing graduate work, I was working with my professor, David Cope, who passed away this last year. He is the father of AI in music. And so we were working way back then, going in the wrong direction, but that's how long it's taken for AI to come to market. But in 1993, I'm in Chicago, and I met another student, graduate student, Mark Andreessen, who then invented the first browser and that launched the internet. So at each one of these times, the light bulb went off and said, whether I like it or not, this is going to change the world. How am I going to respond to this? And so here we are at a third inflection point, and this one perhaps even bigger, with a bigger impact. I personally feel that the value of the liberal arts is only strengthened in this new economy, but we got to figure it out fast, and we've got to make sure that our faculty, our staff, and our students are trained. And I think, David Grossman had a great story there. I do it the same when I guest teach. I say, great, take out your phones. Okay, Google it. Great. Use AI. Great. Oh, we've got 4 different answers in the room. Huh. How do we know which one is right? Same thing we all did as students. Do the research. Check your sources. Have multiple sources. What's the credibility? It's the same issue. But if we people, Mary Marchand was absolutely equipped. We are in the attention economy. There are forces at work that want to capture our attention and monetize them. Great, that's okay, but if we're not aware of it, we watch advertising, that's great. Advertising brings value. I found this tie through an advertisement. I'm like, okay, great, I like this tie, wonderful. But if we're not aware that we're being marketed to in specific ways, then we're not doing our job preparing our students out to the. I will say one difference. In 1977, when I met Steve Jobs, in 1993, when I met Mark Andreessen, all of those standards were created in universities, and they were open standards in public domain available for everybody to use. What concerns me about this one is these are proprietary standards developed within companies, privately held companies, with little visibility and very, very few controls, and our governmental leaders are sitting on the sidelines. That is a big concern to me. So we'll be investing in our technology by next April, the same time we open the building. We're going to be on a whole new student information system. For the first time, we'll really be able to have all of our data in one place, secure, encrypted, allows us to make sure that when we're pulling a report, it's the right numbers, that we can do long-term projections, we can really optimize the business operations of the college, but also that everything a student needs to do, they can do it on their phone. Register, drop a class, schedule advisor, all those kind of things. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we've got to articulate our brand distinctiveness. There's 3,000 colleges, public and private, 1,500 private colleges out there in America. Everybody's got something for everybody else. We just have to articulate what we are really good at. And we're not great for everybody, but for those students who find out about this, we've got to get them and got to get that message nationwide. And now, quite frankly, internationally. We need them to know about us. So that's going to be a big challenge over the next 3 years. So there'll be more coming on this strategic plan by the time we actually finish it and publish it in the fall. But you'll see the next 3 years, that's where we're going to be focusing. So I've probably gone way too long, but I just want to kind of share all the stuff that's happening here because there's a lot of stuff happening at Goucher. So thank you for being here. And if I have any time for questions, I'll take them. But she's like, nope. Okay. I am around all day, so grab me for your question.
And I would say if you want to ask some questions, I believe Kent's going on the tour of the Luent Center next, right? Yes. So join him on that if you would like to follow up on some questions. We have a couple of changes to location, so I just want to call out what comes next. First of all, I would refer you to in your folders, there is this lovely thing that the insert includes a bunch of events that are going on. Yes, I can. Yes. In your folders, you have this insert. It has a bunch of this afternoon's activities in it. I would encourage you to take a look at it and to explore Goucher's campus. Up next, if you would like to take a tour of the Luent Center with President Devereaux and our amazing students, and I think our CFO, you can go out these doors. There are some golf carts waiting. They will take you over there to do a tour. This year celebrates 20 years of study abroad at Goucher. So if you had a study abroad experience, up on the third floor in room 342, we're recording some of those experiences. I know kind of recording and documenting and archiving experiences came up yesterday in one of the panels. I would encourage you to partake in that. Please join us back here at 2 o'clock for the pep rally and AAGC meeting. Where we'll celebrate all of the reunion classes, and we have some awards to hand out. Some updates to the schedule. So the class of 1981 reunion at 7 o'clock. 81's here somewhere, yeah, right. There you go. You've been moved to the Buckner room, which is in the Alumni House. So new location for you. Bites and Beats, hosted by Bag. Ladies, I see some of you up back there. You will be not in Hubeck. You're going to be over in Buckner as well. So you're going to go back to the Alumni House for your new location right after this. And then there's a shuttle for the class of 71 and 76 to the cocktail party at the President's House. It's going to depart from the Alumni House at 4:40. So new location on that as well. Okay, hopefully we'll see you back here at 2 o'clock. Thanks. The luncheon is right through there, right now. So if you're going to lunch, lunch is right through those doors. No, so it'll be...